Hello, and welcome to another episode of Using Our Library Voices. Just one more way the Harris County Public Library is serving our customers from within and outside our walls. My name is Sadina Shawver. I'm a Children's Services Librarian at the Barbara Bush Branch in Cypress Creek, and I'm one of the hosts of this special anniversary episode. We're the production darlings of Harris County.
My name is Rachel Moyer.
My name is Kaluza.
My name is Jennifer.
Hello, my name is Israel.
Hello, I'm Beth.
My name is Sadina Shawver. John Harbaugh.
Lloyd Hewen. Laura Echeverria. Jason Cruz.
Laura Smith.
Nancy Hugh.
Christian Ornelas. Leif Stinkson.
Rebecca Trent.
Darla Pruitt. Darcy Casavant. Jennifer Finch. Nicole Hindmon.
Logan Tuttle.
Anna Weinberger.
Lauren Peters.
Sue Ellen Dunn.
Linda Stevens.
We bring our passion for literacy and community to you each month.
Welcome to Gathering with the Librarians, where Harris County Public Librarians get together to talk about different topics.
Welcome to Are You Afraid of the Stacks, where we talk about the spookier side of children's literature.
Welcome to Using Our Library Voices.
And now, join me as we take a look back at the last year and go behind the podcast.
Hi, I'm John Harbaugh, a children's librarian for the Parker Williams Library. A coworker, Jason Cruz, and I started to talk about doing an anime podcast for our branch. It had been about a year since we hosted any real anime programs in person, so I started to shop around for equipment, web hosting, and all that production type stuff. I started thinking to myself, we probably need to ask admin about this before we just go out and do it. That's when I started talking to Nancy Hugh, the Design and Communications Manager in Partnerships, Programs, and Outreach. How many branches were doing independent podcasts by the time I started to talk to you?
I believe only one or two branches were already doing their podcast or were already in podcast production. One of them was Atascocita because they had gotten a grant. And the other one wasn't necessarily an audio podcast, but they were sending me files that were audio in video form. And that was actually Tomball.
Well, and then there's also Octavia Fields did have their, at least one episode of their teen show.
Right. Octavia Fields.
What does that even mean?
They were brought in later because they weren't even on my radar at that point. The first few branches that reached out was Jennifer Finch over at Spring Branch, Karen over at Galena Park actually as well, you, John, at Parker Williams, and I don't remember if Beth or Darla reached out, but I knew they were already doing something. But that's kind of where the formation came about.
So what made you think to bring everybody under one umbrella group?
Well, as we've come to learn also in producing the podcast, it takes a village, a small village, and it wasn't going to happen, I believe, for our system, unless it was this kind of conglomerate, collaborative system. And I say that because having a podcast gives you such a large platform. It's not just local, it's international. And you're able to really put your ideas and your messages to such a large network of people that we wanted to definitely do this in a way where it was representative of everybody in the Harris County Public Library system. So it didn't want it to be from just one specific community or location or for audience. And this is how we decided to go into the podcast space.
So going into that space, what kind of conversations did you have with different stakeholders, maybe in the programming partnerships and outreach that really got us to be able to have this podcast?
One of the biggest things about working for the library and being at our library system specifically is that our administration is so supportive of exploration and of different mediums that the branches are curious about. So the conversations that we had were more about, is this feasible? Are we able to make a quality product? And are we able to maintain the workflow needed to sustain something like this when we enter this new space? It wasn't necessarily a conversation about permission, but it was a conversation about possibilities.
Do you really feel that all of our different points of view have made a real good quality show?
I will definitely say, this medium for me is new. So I will say that in terms of quality of content, I believe our quality is good, but quality of production we have been working on. So, the different aspects of what we mean when we say quality and points of view. There are so many. We represent a county of 5 million people. So we're getting there. And we've only been around, we're a monthly podcast. So we'll be making our rounds to represent and express the different points of view within our system and our communities.
So here's some questions for the whole podcast group. So when we all got together to make this whole podcast thing happen, what was it that drew you into wanting to help out?
Well, what drew me into wanting to do this is, like many people, when we first started discussing this, we were sitting at home. The libraries were closed to even us, and I was looking for things to fill my time that I would normally be doing, playing programs or helping people at the desk. And I really liked the idea of doing a podcast. Originally, I had a completely different idea of what I wanted to do in a podcast. But then when Nancy got everybody together to discuss it, it slowly started forming into what became Using Our Library Voices. And then we had our little spin-offs that came after that.
What drew me into helping with the podcast production was that really it's been a medium that I have enjoyed personally and that I have always wanted to explore. And so that's what really kind of drove me into helping support with the whole project and with the whole show. So for me, it was about learning how podcasting works and come to find out that it's a great tool and a great learning experience while I get to collaborate with staff members from all over the county.
I actually got called in because Bryan added me to the group chat because I had just done the Best Buy grant. And so we had gotten about $15,000 worth of equipment to start an AV club for our teens and got that in December of 2019. Our first meeting was in January of 2020, and we managed to get one program. And what was funny is the program that would have been March 17th was podcasting, was our very first podcast. And that's the week we closed down. So Ryan had added me to the group chat because he wanted me to talk about it. He kept asking me, well, what did you buy for this? And what did you buy for that? And a lot of my favorite people are in this group. And so I was like, you know what, let's do this. This is a lot of fun. I've enjoyed producing. I've enjoyed doing segments and interviews. But I was just brought in. Brian's not even in the group anymore so that I could let y'all know what we were getting. And what's funny, it's kind of evolved. And I found out that the stuff a lot of people recommended for podcasting was not really what we needed, and we needed other things. The whole learning curve that we've experienced with this podcast.
Oh, totally. It's been such a huge learning experience. And I forgot to mention, Ryan was actually part of it as well. Thank you for reminding me about that.
Yeah.
Why Brian's not participating so much in this public podcast is because he's kind of taken over this internal training podcast that he produces and that whole group produces for internal training. When we thought about podcasting, of course, we thought front-facing, public-facing, but what Ryan wanted to do was have an internal training segment and series in podcast form to serve our staff members.
Well, we all pretty much record here. So I know that whenever we record, it always looks weird. We've got blankets up. We've got, like, the last time I made like a tent to make sure that it didn't bounce all over everything. So it's basically me and Jason in a tent recording, talking about anime and having staff members accidentally walk in and looking at us under this tent like we're complete weirdos. So are there any like fun or funny things that you do or that it kind of looks like when you record?
When we were recording multiple people at our branch, we had several people in one conversation. We all had to be social distance, so we couldn't be in the same room. And we found out immediately that our study room, it sounds like someone's beating against a steel beam while an airplane takes off, the air conditioning vent that's in the study room. But we found that our storage room, if you face the toilet paper wall in the storage room, and you put like I call it the hoopah, but you put the like a little tent over top of you and stand underneath the hoopah and record, you're good to go. It sounds lovely.
For me here at Spring Branch, I have a setup in a corner where I do it for podcasting, but I also use it for my crochet project videos. And I have a blanket over a table, and then I have a trifold foam board in front of me, which works pretty well. And then on the sides, I have like a wipe off board that's on wheels that I have a blanket thrown over. I have a couple of room dividers that are for kids, and I have it behind me. I roll up the chair and then I pull the thing up behind me, the blanket over it, so that I'm surrounded and people don't even know I'm in there unless I make sure to tell them, because you can't see me from either of the entrances into the room. And that's the best sound I've had. But every now and then I'm like, okay, can they hear the truck backing up in the parking lot on this? Oh well, or people dropping books in the book drop. Can't really do much about that.
Well, it at least tells the audience that, yes, you really are at a library.
I think I've probably recorded at maybe the most variety of places. We've recorded at admin in several different rooms there. The first episode we recorded was with multiple people again, and with social distancing in mind. We had different kind of curtains and barriers between us and surrounding each individual mic. And then we went on location for a couple of recordings where podcasting on the go is a different thing than when you have like a more set up studio. So we're learning about all these different methods of production. And then as we're recording this, online today, we've tried many different platforms in recording. We tried Discord, we've tried Squadcast, we've tried Teams, and I'm sure we'll try many different more in this coming year.
So are there any favorite moments from any of the episodes? Because I know we've had some awesome interviews. We've had some great portions of our podcast that have been very informational. Me, myself, I always enjoy during the holidays and hearing all the different holiday and learning about different cultures. So we've had very, different cultural episodes as well. I don't know. I've had a lot of favorite moments, and most of it involves me learning something new.
I definitely have enjoyed a lot of the interviews that we've had. One of the first interviews that I helped record was a conversation with someone from the Asia Society who talked about the origins of the Lunar New Year and talking about production funnies. She was actually in Paris, and here I am in my laundry room having a conversation about the Lunar New Year. And she was so informative. Another interview that I really enjoyed was the interview with the Houston artist, illustrator, Marissa Valdez, where she was also happened to be out overseas in Europe, in London. And we recorded her with her interviewee here at work in Houston. So I love that we're able to do that. We have kind of no barriers and no limits to who we're able to reach out to and speak to.
My favorite part is I do, of course, the Gabbing with the Librarians first segment and now spinoff podcast. And a lot of times I have to rein myself and rein the others in because we can go off on bunny trails and discussions. And it's a lot of fun just to talk to the librarians from across the county. We try and get together a lot, but sometimes we just can't get together. Especially in the last year and a half, we have not been able to meet in person. So just getting to talk to different people that don't work at our branches and hear what they have to think and hear what they have to say, especially because I've met so many people doing these podcasts that I have never been in a meeting with or who've joined the counties since we have had in-person meetings. I just really love being able to hear everybody's different opinions, everybody's different passions, because I've had a podcast on crafting, I've had podcasts on different languages, and of course I loved being able to interview the teacher from the Hula Hello Houston, because that was just a lot of fun, and she got to call me out when I accidentally slipped into the Hawaiian accent that I picked up when I lived there. So that was pretty funny.
I really had a lot of fun doing our segment with the teens, because they actually kind of blew me away with some of their insights and some of the things they had to say. And it was a lot of fun to do. I really enjoyed it. And I like to also gabbing with librarians, because I get to hear all these different voices from all over the county. Like John said, we also learned so many new things. I really enjoyed the University of Houston, the LGBTQ archive, because growing up in Houston, a lot of the resources they have is like, oh, I remember that. And I remember that club and those flyers and different things that they talked about, it was very nostalgic, and it's really nice to highlight resources that, outside of our walls. And I really thought that was a great segment.
So what future do you see for using our library voices? Because I'm pretty sure that, not that I'm speaking for everyone, but I'm pretty sure that everyone thinks, hey, we're going to keep doing this thing and we're going to keep on plugging along. We're going to have great interviews. We're going to bring in more people, more communities. We're going to have more representation of what Houston really is. And everyone, all across the country can download and listen to using our library voices. And so they can find out what Houston is really like, what Harris County is really like. So the future that I see is us keeping up this quality, that we're able to have interesting content and give everyone something neat to learn about. What do you think our future is going to be like?
I'd like to see our podcast continue bringing subject matter to our listeners that are relevant to not where we just live in Houston, in this Houston area, but to bring to their attention a little bit of the history and a little bit of the resources that could be found at any library, not just our system, and really provide them the interest for them to explore the subject more on their own. A gateway to lesser known subjects or events in history, or
little niche things that nobody but library people might know or listen to or be able to tell you about because we're really into it.
Right. To really showcase the passion of the passion. Well, because, books permeate the subject matter at our libraries, permeate through everything. Books are life, right? And we have a little bit slice of everything available to us at the tip of our hands. So we just want to definitely bring that to every listener. And I hope that our podcast can do something like that for anyone who stumbles across it.
I want using our library voices to continue. I want to keep doing gabbing as long as I can. And then if I can't do it anymore, pass it on to somebody else so they can keep it going. But I really want to showcase the importance of libraries and what we really do and the information that we provide, the services that we provide. I want people to realize that we are still, through our podcast, still a place that they can come and get help to learn about how to do a resume, to write a cover letter, learn how to write a business proposal or a small business grant, or just find places where they can learn how to do that. I want them to know that we are a fantastic service that they can still use at the tip of their fingers, that it's free for everybody. And even if you can't come into the library, you can use our services like using our library voices. You can attend programs virtually with like Apollo Chamber players. You can check out books. You can do research. We have these databases. I want using our library voices to be another medium. We can tell people about everything that we do and what we think. I think it's important that they know that what we're passionate about and that, hey, we may have some passions that you share. Like, I love Marvel. Would you like to come to a program on Marvel? Because I'm really excited about it. And so you can come be really excited about this thing with me. I think that's just as important as learning about jobs, is finding people that you're passionate with, and we can be that place that you can find that.
Well, we do use our libraries as a way in which people connect, and that connectivity between people is what really builds communities.
Well, and I think the podcast highlights one of our best resources, which is us, which is the members of the Harris County Public Library System. We have wonderful resources. We can geek out with you. We can find you information. We can do all this, and now you know who we are by listening to the podcast. We're using our library voices.
I'd like to thank Darla Pruitt, Nancy Hugh, Jennifer Finch, and all of the other voices that we have, and thanks for joining.
You have a question? I said, do you have a question? This isn't your mama's database drill. This is the Harris County Public Library database drill. This is the part of our podcast that will show you the best of the best databases provided through HCPL. So I'll ask you again, do you have a question? Let's hear it.
Provide a question by emailing podcast
database.hcpl.net. On the next database drill segment, you'll hear an HCPL librarian take you through the steps of a database that will help you find your answer.
Hi, my name is Jennifer. I'm the Senior Adult Program Specialist at the High Meadows Branch Library, and this is my 1 year in podcasting. Sadina from the Barbara Bush Library and I have been in talks for a while about starting a personal podcast. We had tossed around several ideas for the podcast when Sadina heard from a colleague that there was a potential system-wide podcast being created. When Sadina told me about the podcast being created, we both quickly decided that we needed to jump on this opportunity and become a part of the system-wide podcast. We pitched our idea of exploring horror in children's literature, and the rest, they say, is history. What I loved about podcasting, the fun part about podcasting is really the recording for me. Talking about how horror impacts children and literature is really fun because it's eye-opening for a lot of folks. When I speak with listeners about our segment and now a spinoff, they're always, one, amazed that we can talk about horror in children's literature, and two, that we can relate it to everyday life and learn from it. It really helps to also have a child because I can relay these experiences from my home life. Some of the things that I've loved about podcasting is the learning aspect. I've gotten to dabble in hosting, production, and editing. I really enjoy the production side and hosting, but I was always afraid to edit. We'd have several meetings and they'd ask for volunteers to edit podcasts, and I would be so afraid I wouldn't volunteer. I finally gave it a try, and it wasn't as bad as I thought. Most of my favorite moments actually come from editing a podcast myself. I really loved editing the Halloween episode. It was a lot of fun. Aside from that, my favorite moments of this first year of podcasting come from one of our voices, Beth. Beth has hosted episodes and voice promos and even voice short stories for our episodes, and I have thoroughly enjoyed her range when it comes to keeping the audio engaging and entertaining. That is no easy feat, and she does it effortlessly.
So we're back.
Yep.
And who are we? What is going on? What is this today?
A special clip coming to you from the hosts of What Does That Even Mean? I'm Nicole.
Yeah. And I am Gaby, and we're here at the Octavia Fields Branch Library. We were asked, why did we start this podcast? Like, why did we want to do this, Nicole? What does that even mean?
What? Let's see. When we started this, we first wanted to start a in-person program teaching teens stuff that they don't teach you in school. Life skills like how do you do your laundry? How do you iron a shirt? How to dress for a job interview?
How do you balance a checkbook?
Yeah, or just put together a budget, like that kind of thing that's not necessarily talked about in school. But there was like
COVID was happening.
I don't know if you guys have heard about this.
There's a thing called
the pandemic is going on.
Still happening.
Yep.
So we could not do it in person. So you came up with a great idea to do a podcast for teens, which is something that I don't see many out there, especially not targeted for specific teens in our area. I think a lot of the information that we provide could be, information for someone anywhere, but for our community specifically, we don't have anything like that. So I thought it was a really great idea. And when you pitched it, I was like, sure, let's do it. And at first, it was not going to include me.
Yeah, like you were like, oh yeah, just like create this podcast where it's just like you talking into a microphone. And I was like, that's going to be so boring.
I was rolled in to do the comic relief, which is why I'm here. Also, we were asked what our favorite episode is. So,
what is your favorite episode?
So I have two because I couldn't choose. So one is the one that I actually researched. So that one was the time management one. That was a lot of research. Good way for me to kind of talk about my anxiety and kind of like accept my anxiety. And just make it like a normal thing, because I think a lot of people are suffering from anxiety and maybe they feel like it's not a thing that a lot of people suffer with, but it's very commonplace. So especially right now during the pandemic, I think a lot of people are finding ways to kind of take care of their mental health. So that's really important. And time management is one of the ways I manage my own mental health and anxiety. So that one was one of my favorite episodes. And then, of course, tacos for president, basically.
Yes, your taco platform.
My platform of tacos for everyone.
That was when we talked about becoming elected and how to campaign.
Yes,
how does campaigning work?
Yeah, how do elections even work? So that was amazing. I love that episode because I feel like that was very fun, and that information can be a little bit dry, and we presented it, I think, the best way that we could. And it worked, and I think it might actually be one of our most listened to episodes. So,
I mean, it's a good episode.
It is a very good episode. I think that was one of the episodes that is the most listened to. Mm-hmm. So I'm very proud of that episode. I think it was very good information, and we provided it in a way that made it accessible to the layman. So, do you have a favorite episode?
No.
Oh, you're terrible. You don't listen to any of them because you edit them. So.
I edit them, yeah. I spend like approximately 9 to 10 hours listening to them. So, no, I don't have any favorites.
So, the last question here is, where do you see this podcast going?
We talk a lot about life skills, but I'm also kind of interested in seeing if we can also turn into more misinformation in general. Like, one of the things that we're seeing right now as librarians, as people working in libraries, is a lot of misinformation floating around, especially geared towards younger people. Mm-hmm. So I don't know exactly.
Not just geared towards younger people.
Well,
I
yeah,
think just geared to the people who aren't aware of how to do their own research.
Right.
What do we always say? Do your own research.
Yeah. And I would hope that we could find a way to encourage by talking about common misinformation topics, like how do vaccines work? Or
that's a good one.
Yeah, or, things.
How does the CDC work? That's a lot.
That's a lot.
But I think it's, that's good information.
What is the CDC?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So, how does censorship work? Mm-hmm. What is censorship?
What is that? That's a big deal in libraries. So
yes. But, things that are necessarily like
something that most people
wouldn't know about.
Right. Yeah.
So we'll see if we're able to move into that direction.
But, and I kind of want to just throw in every once in a while episodes where it's just general stuff, like general topics, because I think that listeners can kind of get to know us a little bit better, and then we would hope that people would actually comment and let us know what they want to hear about, because I want to do episodes that you guys want to listen to. So I'm hoping that we're not just talking into the ether.
Like a visitor, or a listener, or like email episode,
like my
how can I find this thing, and we can do just like reference on the podcast.
Send us your questions, we will do the research.
Just engage with us in general. We're very lonely.
I think that would be where I would want to take it. It's just more engagement, I think, and just make this like a full-fledged thing. So
even though we've taken 3 months off for our mental health. Our next episode is going to be self-care. So we're going to be talking about this break that we took as a part of our self-care.
Yes, I think that'll be great. So make sure you stay tuned. And
coming soon.
Yeah, this was
season 2.
This was who? No, wait, that's not who. This was What Does That Even Mean? With my name is Gaby, and I'm here with
Nicole.
And we are at Octavia Fields Library. And this is a podcast hosted by the Friends of the Octavia. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Or you'll hear from us soon.
We hope you've enjoyed our look at the stage magic that makes our content possible, with a peek behind the podcast.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Using Our Library Voices. If you enjoyed this episode, we welcome you to subscribe to our Using Our Library Voices podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast streaming platforms. For more information on any of the resources and books mentioned in this episode, please contact your local library or visit our website at www.hcpl.net.